Hello, welcome back to another episode of John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. Today, I'd like to go over the three basic methodologies in managing a project and maybe briefly explain why or some of the criteria that you may want to use when making your final determination on those areas. So, let me put you in a play here. Let's assume one, that you're the project manager. Two, you've been introduced at the project at the very beginning, so you can become the architect of how the project will roll out, how it will be developed. And three, you've actually been issued a charter. So you actually have a project. Let's also assume that the sponsor has not dictated a certain way that the project needs to be done. If that has occurred and you suddenly discover that perhaps it should be accomplished a different way, in that case, you may have to go through negotiations. But for now, let's just assume that that has not occurred, on those pieces. So you have a project, you have a product that you're trying to deliver, and you're trying to understand or figure out, hey, what is the best way to deliver? What is the process? In the PM world, we basically have three major methodologies. We have the traditional or waterfall, we have the agile or adaptive, and then we have hybrid. Of course, there's others that are interspersed in there, but those are going to be the big three, on those sides. So when I am looking at a project, when I'm looking at a product that needs to be delivered, and I'm assuming that I'm going to be going through some phases, in those regards, I might take a grand look and try to understand, hey, how is or what is the grand vision for this product? At the end of the day, what is it that we actually are trying to do or trying to accomplish or trying to develop? So normally I kind of start with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind, and then kind of work backwards from those pieces. The three major criteria that I would look at, and it's not in particular order because they're all actually interlinked on those areas. One is the product, two is going to be the team, and three is going to be the culture. So let's talk about the product first. That's the item, the widget that's going to be developed. The question now becomes, is it one of those products where really everything has to be done before you can actually use it or move on to the next phase? Or is it a product that can be developed using minimal viable product, MVPs, or minimal business increments, MBIs? In other words, can you have a series of prototypes, and I'm just using layperson's terminology here, but can you have a series of prototypes that are actually usable, customer accepted, and they'll kind of move on, move forward from it, on those areas. So that's just one question. If it is a product where you honestly just have to have everything built before you can actually use it, more than likely you're going to be better off using traditional methods or waterfall. If it's a product where you can actually use prototypes and iterate your way to success, then I would probably use, it's probably a good candidate for Agile. It's not the only criteria, but it does kind of lend itself to it. So probably one of the first questions I would ask myself is, what kind of a product is this, and how does it need to evolve over time? The second criteria is going to be the team. If you've been in any of my classes before, you know that I kind of say that there's two types of teams that are out there. There's the American football team, and then there's the soccer team. What do I mean about the difference between the two? An American football team typically has three major roles, at least on the offense side. They're going to have a quarterback, they're going to have a receiver, and a linebacker. Each of those roles are vital. They're important. They're interlocked, for sure, because one without the other is going to be successful. In the meaning that the quarterback passes to the receiver who catches, but the linebacker blocks, on that side. Now, in some areas of football, and of course, I'm not the football individual, but however, sometimes we'll see sometimes where the teams will switch them up, and in some cases it works, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. Why? Because they have roles and tasks that they're very, very detailed on. They truly, truly understand those areas, and they would prefer, they actually need to stay in those areas. Sometimes we'll call it lanes. Let's contrast that with a soccer team. Soccer, you have, in general speaking, you have a forward, you have a halfback, and you have a fullback. Forward, strikers, they try to score. The halfback goes all over the place. The fullback tries to defend, on those areas. In all likelihood, all three positions, all three folks that play in those positions, they're probably pretty good ball handlers in and of itself. Now they have a position, they would prefer to stay in that position, but in a pinch or a desire, they can easily switch around and not miss a beat. What do I mean by that? The fullback, while he or she prefers to defend the goal, could try to score. Likewise, the forward, while they would prefer to try to score, can fall back and help defend. And what I mean by that is that the teams, they can move around fairly easily. Again, they have preferred positions, but they can easily move around. So, where am I getting at with this on the team? If you have a team that's more like an American football team, then you're probably better off using traditional waterfall methodologies. If you have a team that's more like a soccer team, then it's a good candidate for agile processes and adaptive. Of course, not everything's, black and white and things of that nature, one and zero binary. There can be some crossover on those pieces, but generally speaking, that's the way I would look at it. That third criteria I would look at is the culture. The culture of what? Culture of the organization. At the end of the day, if the organization has a lot of trust in it, then Agile probably works out fairly well. If there's not a lot of trust, and there could be some very good reasons for it, highly regulatory industries and things of that nature, then you're probably better off using traditional types of methodologies on those areas. All right, so let's just kind of wrap this up. The three major methodologies that are out there. There's going to be a waterfall or traditional. There's going to be adaptive or agile, and then there's going to be hybrid. At some point in time, you have to have a good understanding of how this project or how the product will roll out throughout the project, on those areas. And depending on those three criteria, which again is going to be your product, your team, and your culture, you may decide to go with one methodology over the other. Just to put in one final point, you can actually switch as you're going through the project, excuse me. Let's assume that you're in phase one and you're like preparing everything. Okay. Actually, let me back up a couple of steps. Let's say that you're at the very beginning of the project and you're trying to build a deck behind your house, a construction project. As we all know, most construction projects are going to be waterfall. Okay, waterfall or traditional. In other words, just serial. However, what you could do is in the first phase, when you're actually going through the planning and trying to figure out exactly what it is you want, you may actually use agile processes. In other words, you go through plans and you kind of go through architectural sketches and diagrams until you actually get to something that you actually want. And then you flip over into a traditional. And then the contractors come out and they just deliver that plan. So you can mix and match on those areas. Just be sure to keep the broad principles good, and you'll be fine on those areas. Again, there's some other things that you don't want to do, but I'll cover those in a different video on that side. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully that you found this of value. If you did, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it as this helps us to help you. Thank you and have a great day.